Good morning, everybody. Thank you, Joe, for inviting me to this wonderful panel to share my views on the prospects of a sustainable democracy in the Arab world after the Arab Spring. I think that the discussion on the compatibility of Islam and democracy has reached its final conclusion, and the jury is out. And the answer is, you can go either way. You can justify a liberal democracy, you can justify a radical democracy, or you can justify a monarchy or even a dictatorial state using Islamic sources. You just have to pick and choose the Islamic sources that you have. The role of political thinkers, therefore, in such a scenario is to be able to advance a coherent public philosophy which is true to the authentic sources themselves, but also true to the needs of well-being for the community itself. And so when people reach other conclusions which justify monarchies or dictators, I'm not very sure whether they are in the interest of the community. And if the interest of the community at heart is, then it's very difficult to escape the seduction of a liberal democracy. Having said that, I think that now that the euphoria of this amazing liberation from dictatorship in the Arab world has settled down, the more interesting work has begun, which is redesigning the state. All Arab countries which have become liberated and which are on the way to liberation have all the challenges that remained prior to their liberation from dictators, such as economic development, becoming part of the globalization, modernization, issues of gender equity, etc. Those issues have not disappeared. So the new regimes and the new governments have inherited the same challenges, but they also have an additional challenge now, which is to redesign the state itself. So there is a political philosophical challenge that has been added to the existing economic development-related challenges. The Arab world has broadly experienced two kinds of changes. One is political change through regime change, and the other is political change without regime change. For example, if you look at Tunisia and Egypt, they are seeking political change through regime change. What they have achieved is regime change, but we are not very sure whether they have fully achieved political change. So yes, two guys left the Arab world, Mubarak and Ben Ali. That doesn't mean these two countries are democratic at the moment. Their regimes have been transformed to some extent, but have they been able to bring in political changes? The alternative models, the more successful one is Morocco and the other less successful one is Jordan, which have tried to bring in political change without regime change. This is the model. So the monarchies have tried to keep the regime but bring in some kind of political change. The dictatorships are where the political change is coming through regime change. Having said that, there are many challenges that these countries face, and the issue of whether democracy will prevail, whether the end game of the immediate political change is a democracy, and then whether that democracy is sustainable remains to be seen in the future. If you look at Citizens United, voter laws in the United States, voter ID issues, you realize that every day we can ask the question about the oldest and the most stable democracy, whether democracy is sustainable. So this idea that there is a point where democracy becomes sustainable, I don't think is an imaginary situation. I think we have to fight for democracy everywhere, whether it is 2 days old or 200 years old. Having said that, I think the most interesting arena where all these issues are being contested is this nebulous concept called Dawlah Madaniyyah. It is a fascinating concept. It has an immediate appeal. This idea of a civil state has immediate appeal, especially in the Arabic language, because it is the exact opposite of Dawlah Askari, which is a military state. And therefore, the fact that Dawlah Madaniyyah implies a regime which is unlike the regime that Mubarak was running, unlike the regime or the opposite of the regime that Ben Ali and Gaddafi and others were running, has an intrinsic appeal to everybody, whether you're a political philosopher, an Islamist, or a poor farmer struggling to make ends meet. There is an appeal that this is different. There is a promise of change. But what does it mean? Does it mean an Islamic democracy? Does it mean a liberal democracy? Interestingly, the very fact that it is nebulous has allowed it to be everything for everybody. For example, the Islamists, for the first time, are being tested, where they realize that they do have a strong constituency because of their history and the fact that they have been the only organized opposition in most of the Arab countries. They are at the moment enjoying the benefits of their long traditions and long institutionalization in the Arab world, so they are ahead in the political game. But they do realize that their constituency is limited. And so in order to appeal to the rest of the country, they have to be able to talk about their Islamic ideas in a non-Islamic language. And Dawlah Madaniyyah allows Islamists to talk about an Islamic state without raising the flags that scare away liberals and secularists and leftists. So when a politician from the Muslim Brotherhood is advocating for Dawlah Madaniyyah, he's actually advocating for an Islamic state in just a new language. And for a liberal Democrat, like Amr Hamzawi, for example, someone who would love to see an American-style liberal democracy installed and functioning in the Arab world, Dawlah Madaniyyah is a language which allows him to advocate for a liberal democracy without using the word liberal, which has such negative connotations now everywhere in the world, including here. Apparently liberal is a bad word. It's a four-letter word, the only four-letter word in politics which has global currency. So what is interesting to me is that as long as the concept of Dawlah Madaniyyah remains obscure and nebulous, it has created a common ground for leftists, for secularists, for moderates, for liberals, Islamists, and even the Salafists to come and talk about a common state. But nevertheless, there is a definition. If you look at the Tunisian preamble to the constitution, in just one sentence, they say that in order to have a participatory politics, we want a democracy, a republic, and a civil state, all in just one sentence in the fourth paragraph. I find it's like a whole wish list of an entire civilization in one sentence. Democracy, republic, and a civil state. What they mean is that they want a state based on citizenship. To a political theorist, this is completely counterintuitive. Citizenship is a property that is imparted by the state. Citizenship is a property that is imparted by the state. We could write a constitutional amendment to define citizenship in this country whichever way we like. So the fact that the Arab world is talking as if citizenship is given and the state is not, and they are seeking to define state based on citizenship, that is the interesting thing. And the reason why that is the case is because all the liberal values that are enshrined in a liberal democracy, equality between religion groups, equality between genders, all freedoms of speech, are now